Hello, everybody. Patrick McFarland here of the Liberty Weekly podcast. This one is episode 137, and I'm joined again by Keith Knight. How you doing, bud?
Excellent, Patrick. I heard you got yourself in trouble the other day. I can't wait to get the story out of you.
So I might have made a scene at Papa John's here locally because it was a Monday and my wife didn't want to make dinner, so I ended up picking up something on the way home. Had to run a few errands first. Stopped at the gun shop. It was closed. It closed at 5. I wasn't happy about that. And I had been in depositions all day. So I, like, literally 6 hours long, and I was not in a great mood for a Monday. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had it, like, up to here with this COVID stuff. And I try and be nice and accommodating. However, I went to Papa John's and it was raining outside and I was in my suit and I didn't have a mask with me, and I had gone into Walgreens earlier, and I try to go into stores without a mask when I can get away with it, because my big thing really is that this is going to continue until people get brave and do something about it, and until they say no. And so I try to do that, and usually I literally, since this all started, I go in often to stores without my mask on, and people don't say anything to me about it. I might get a few like bad looks from other patrons, but most people just want to, they don't want to confront people, and they don't care personally. It's usually their employers, unless their employer is forcing them to do something. So I go into Papa John's and I don't have a mask on. It's raining outside. I go up, I pay for my order just fine, and the teenager, and it's mostly teenagers who are there. And the teenager, he let me pay and everything. And I go stand in the corner by myself, completely away from everyone. And there's one other dude in the Papa John's, maybe another person. But I'm sitting there maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then a manager comes up to me because I'm waiting for my order. And the manager comes up to me and he's like, so you're either going to have to put a mask on, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store. And I was like exhausted. There were probably raccoon rings under my eyes. And I was like, seriously? Like, it's raining outside. And he's like, yeah, seriously, it's the law. And I wouldn't have said anything or made a scene if he hadn't said it's the law. Because that just that got something deep down inside of me. And I wish I said something more articulate, but I said, I don't give a fuck what the law is. Excuse my language. But so I said that really loud, and the other person looked at me, and I was like, fine, I'll just go outside. And I wish I would have thought of something better to say. He could have come up to me and been like, hey, man, like, my bosses, I hope you understand, I hate to do this, but my bosses make me, tell people to put a mask on or leave. And I would have been like, hey, you know what? I'm in the same situation. I understand. Let me go out to my car. So I went out to my car, and I was hoping the manager would come out so I could say more choice words to him about, gold stars and the law in Nazi Germany, but or some kind of clever thing about how a governor's mandate actually isn't a law, or something about how there's certain laws that exist beyond the purview of the state. But I know that he would have just seen me as some crazy, whatever, difficult person who just wants to make his life miserable. So it made me think a lot about, of course, I haven't really tackled COVID on this show, and who best to do it with than Keith Knight? But it is just absurd, and enough is enough, and people have to speak up about this, because it's going to be almost, I don't know, we're, 3 or 4 months short of a year now that we've been plagued by this, and that is time that we are never going to get back in our lives. We are never going to get this time back, and it infuriates me that people aren't doing anything about this, and people that are lying down and dying. And these lemmings, if the government made it illegal to go outside, these people would die in their fucking houses. They would die in their houses, and it makes me so mad. So what do you think, Keith?
Well, I'm curious. So is there, just out of pure curiosity, is there actually a law where you live about needing masks inside of a business?
I thought there was some kind of a mandate, and I honestly I ignore it and just go on with my life whenever Governor Evers gets on TV and says a bunch of bullshit. And I don't because he had instituted some kind of order where it was like you could only have 25% capacity in public buildings, and that was an actual part of the law. And I don't know if the mask mandate was made law as a part of it. I should have researched that. But yeah, I mean, just yeah, it was upheld by a judge. I'm looking at. I'll drop a link in the show notes page. This is NPR.
I was just curious because you could always, play some legal voodoo on him, because they would never know the difference if you just tried to, out articulate them on what the law actually is, if that's their justification.
Yeah.
You could always just think of yourself as a Rosa Parks and just refuse to comply with unjust edicts of the state. I love that because then they have to bash a woman of color in order to justify any of their behavior. Of course, I too am against any mask mandates. Great thing about freedom, though, is if you want to wear a mask or a hazmat suit or stay in your house, we have Amazon, we have grocery deliveries, we have computers, we have internet companies, we have routers that make life a lot easier than it otherwise would be in the absence of a free market where people could trade, profit incentive, competition, improving products and quality. So that's my general feel about the whole thing. But we are up against people, Patrick, who believe in the science. So they don't talk to us. They just go to the numbers and the graphs and the stats. So let's pull up that article that Dr. Thomas E. Woods of Columbia University. Did he go to Harvard or Columbia? I think he went to both.
Yep.
He went to both. All right. So this is a PhD in history. And he went through a number of these graphs that we have here, which is the scientific case. See, I'm obviously just an emotional extremist who knows nothing at all. Here we have the actual cases. First, so you might question, if you scroll down a little, you'll see that Fauci is he's wearing a mask when he's 60 feet 6 inches away from the closest person, the catcher, when he throws this horrific pitch. And then he goes closer to two other people and takes his mask off. When he's far away with the cameras on, he has the mask. When he's right next to people, then obviously no mask. Maybe it's because in March he had actually said on 60 Minutes that you shouldn't be wearing a mask. But, the state encourages evildoers. So do me a favor, keep scrolling down. So what we could do, I don't know how effective this would be, but do it for yourself just to see the cognitive dissonance in the average person. Please scroll down to the first graph here. I think it's of Austria. Yeah. So what you'll see here is the lack of correlation between the date, which you could see at the bottom of when masks were required, and the number of COVID cases. Deaths obviously is different. In Arizona, cases are up, a lot, but deaths are all the way down because the virus is weakening. Much like the Hong Kong flu of 1968 killed 100,000 Americans when the population was 2/3 the size it is now. No need for a vaccine, no need to shut down. The virus comes, the virus goes after it weakens through regions and populations. That is general herd immunity, same thing that we'd have with COVID. So you can just see, Patrick, if you want to walk through, I'm not able to see the dates at the bottom. So if you just want to walk us through the graphs and the pattern you see with the dates masks were required in all these different countries and their results.
Okay. Excuse me. So on the y-axis here we have the COVID-19 cases per million per day, for those of you who are only listening, which is probably most of you. And so the dates on the bottom on the left-hand side are 3/1/20, 3/8/20, 3/15/20, so on. And it peaks, there's an initial peak at March 29th, 2020 at 75 or 80 million cases, or cases per million per day. That's what the y-axis is. So there's a peak, and then it starts to fall in about, I don't know, a quarter of the way through the fall, which is April 5th, 2020, is when the mask mandate was required. So then it continues to drop and fall and fall and fall all the way down to about 15 cases per million per day. And it pretty much stays there all through May, June, July, starts to rise a little bit in August, ticks a little bit up at the end of August to maybe 25 cases per million per day. Then it keeps rising up, and this is still after the mask mandate. On September 20th, 2020, it was around 90 cases per million per day, and then it really spikes, and this is around October when it rises to over 200 to 240 cases per million per day.
All right, so let's see. You can always have an outlier country that means nothing. The amazing thing about this is the number of countries where all you see is the mask mandate, and then you see no correlation between mandated masks and decreasing cases. So in other words, if you didn't have this arrow, you would have no clue when the mandate was required. So do me a favor, scroll down through the rest. I should be able to read the dates from here. So we have the major spike in what appears to be June 29th in Germany as the cases start decreasing from April 5th to April 26th. They then have a requirement as cases are drastically falling, and then they fall because, it's perfect. They could say, well, we required them and they fell. No need to look before, just like they do with the OSHA graphs. Look at how worker deaths have decreased since OSHA. Well, they were decreasing at a faster rate before then, so it wasn't OSHA, just like it's not the masks. And then it stayed down for a little until it looks like, is that May 27th? Oh, God, that's a lot. Or is that September 27th? Either way, you see a drastic increase while there's still a mask requirement. So it looks like in October they had a big spike in Germany while masks were required. And then we'll quickly just scroll through the rest of these because you end up getting the point. Yeah, France, same thing. Very low. They required masks after their little peak, and then they got a drastic peak in late August, even when there was a mandate. What is the next country? Because we have a real pattern with this. Spain, same thing. No correlation between mask mandates and increased cases. And what's the next one we got here? The United Kingdom, this was the big one where there was the mask requirement. Boris Johnson is now shutting down. I'm sure if we send him this graph, he will rationally change his mind. Belgium, same thing, mask requirement, drastic increase after about a month. It's amazing the pattern you see here. There's just no correlation. Remember at the beginning, they were always saying you have to wear gloves and you have to wash your hands and don't touch your face, mouth, nose, eyes, ears. This is really what you want to keep away from. And then there's Trump touching his face and they go, oh, what an idiot. Now that they don't even talk about gloves. Now it's all about masks, which, as I mentioned, Fauci on 60 Minutes kept telling us we don't need to worry about. So there's Belgium. What are the other? Italy, masks required and cases drastically increase. What are, I just want to list off all the countries. We can just bullet point them off so people know what to look for. European cases, this is the Europe altogether. You cannot see the correlation between masks required and masks mandated in countries. Are there any more after this? I think, do they go states?
Well,
in America?
It's not only that, though, with this European COVID-19 cases graph. You can see the countries which never required masks, and they are flatlined at the bottom. They have had no spike. In fact, I don't know if it was Norway or Sweden or Denmark had higher numbers when all the other countries that we just talked about, when they had lower numbers. But even so, it never got above, I think, 100 cases per million per day in these countries. So, in the Nordic countries, that is, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. Okay, and so next is the United States. Americans have proven to be highly compliant with mask wearing, even higher than the Germans. I wonder why that is, Keith.
Oy vey.
So we have kind of a, I don't know, a scatter plot chart. Okay, so it shows which countries are the most compliant with mask mandates. So we aren't as compliant as Italy or Spain, but we're more compliant than Germany.
All right, so Mussolini and Franco had pretty long-term effects, whereas Germany has actually come around more so. That's good to hear.
Okay, so here's California.
All right, California. Yeah, we just see the same thing. There's just no correlation. So the people who proudly boast as science lovers don't even know what they're talking about. So I would love to see the face of people when, they try calling you out. If you actually pull this out, not because, changing this person's mind will change the world, but just as I'm kind of scared of getting called out, so I sometimes just wear a mask. If they are scared of us showing them graphs, well, maybe we can turn the tables here. So yeah, California mask mandate, drastic increase, absolutely no effect. If mask mandates worked, we'd see a drastic, or we'd see a significant correlation. Mask mandates, massive drop in cases again and again and again, with the exception of places, because sometimes people don't comply, sometimes their numbers are wrong. The amazing thing about this is it's states within America, it's countries across Europe. Yeah, so they use California as an example. What are the other ones? It's California, Hawaii.
Hawaii has outdoor mask mandates.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
didn't even know that.
I saw that. Well, dude, I see people driving alone in their car with them. I see people walking on the street with them.
Wow.
Is that the Hawaiian flag? I don't think I've ever. I
Yeah, I
don't think
don't.
I've ever seen it. Okay. After Hawaii, there's Texas versus Georgia, where there were required masks in Texas and no masks in Georgia. It, generally the same, because as Jeffrey Tucker makes the case in Lockdown or Liberty, that virus is a thing that moves through a region, and after about 70 days goes past, assuming there aren't these things where you're weakening your immune system with gloves and staying in and masks and everything else. And what are the other ones? Yeah, they do another one with New York compared to Sweden. New York having worse results than Sweden, even though they didn't lock down on a massive scale, didn't have mask mandates. But, Cuomo wrote a book about it. So maybe we can go learn a bunch of stuff from him. Yep, that is mainly the general thing about it. So, in short, we have uh, people getting very upset about something they don't understand, but brand new. Well, we haven't experienced that in any other realm of politics. So, Pat, what are your thoughts generally on how lockdowns have not hurt Amazon, certainly haven't hurt Walmart or any of the companies in the Dow Jones Industrial Average? However, they seem to have negatively affected other demographics. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this certainly goes along with just general economics and the whole reason why big corporations like Amazon, Starbucks, Walmart, etc. They love regulations, and in fact, they want to be regulated. Facebook, Twitter, they want more regulations because those businesses, they well, they don't have to enter the market because they already have a large market share, but moreover, they have the resources to jump through these regulatory hoops. And many times they actually buy the legislators who write these regulations. So the mom and pop shops cannot afford to abide by these regulations. And so the mom and pop shops go out of business. And that market share is subsumed by the big corporations who wrote the regulations to begin with. And so what you really have is their return on investment for buying a senator and writing these regulations is actually higher in the gained market share than the expense of hiring or complying with these regulations. In a macrocosm, that's kind of how it works, but specific to the COVID-19 situation, many of these stores are deemed essential and still allowed to stay open, especially, and I don't know if that was part of the plan or what have you, but I don't know. Do you know of any small town grocers? Have you ever, maybe this is a modern thing. I know of maybe one local organic store in my area that sells groceries.
Yeah, we certainly have like, a Persian place. There's a Jewish place that's really, really small. Other than that, the small places are still chains, but they're more local chains in Arizona. Safeway, Albertsons, Fry's, Bash's, Trader Joe's, those are still chains and in other states as well, but they're not the Walmarts and Amazons and Fortune 500s. Well, I guess Kroger, Fry's would be, but they're the places I love to go, which I don't know if they are as hurt by this, but certainly other smaller businesses that are like restaurants where you have razor thin margins. We're going 2 or 3 months without income, and which that puts you out of business. This again refutes the idea that the business just rakes in money no matter what. They don't take any risk. They just sit back and collect. That's all their time and energy that they worked for free, less than minimum wage, $0 an hour, investing their time, and now they don't have anything to show for it, unfortunately. And also, just the fact that there was a lockdown increases the amount of, or it decreases the amount of predictability in law or what your returns on investment would be. Because if by stroke of a pen, the governor is going to shut down your business because of a virus with a 99.999% survival rate, then it's like, you know what? I just can't take the risk anymore. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I think I sent you some images of a previous speech that I gave that I actually did make into a video here. So here we have California businesses leaving the state by the thousands, 765 between the years 2018 and 2019, not counting Charles Schwab's announcement to leave San Francisco. See, all the productive people are leaving. It's only going to be Antifa, homeless people, and Gavin Newsom screaming at the sky telling us we're all racist. Nor does this include 13,000 estimated businesses to have left between 2009 and 2016. This does, of course, have something to do with the fact that California, the homeless capital of America, is 48th as far as business-friendly operations go. The minimum wage was actually refuted in the New York Times. This was published in 1987. There's a virtual consensus among economists that the minimum wage is an idea whose time has passed. Yes, we are listening to the experts. We are listening to the sciences, to the scientists. Yes, so don't take my word for it. Just give in to the professionals. It would increase unemployment, raise the legal minimum price of labor above productivity of the least skilled workers, and fewer will be hired. Pat, you did a video some time ago on the origins of the minimum wage, which certainly persuade a lot of people to, or it increases their insecurity when advocating the idea. What is the general origin of the minimum wage in the progressive era?
Well, so we were very excited way back at the beginning of the Liberty Weekly podcast on episode 14. That's libertyweekly.net/14, where myself and Jerry, my first co-host, we uncovered some rather telling quotations about people. It was actually at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, some professors and the architects behind the minimum wage, some rather racy eugenicist statements by them. And the name isn't coming to mind right now of who the professor was. However, go check out that episode. That was actually, we're excited because that's when James Corbett first noticed the work that we were doing. So that was really special for us. But I would go check that out. But the minimum wage was actually designed to unemploy some of the least desirable members of society. So go check that out. It's definitely a very telling little piece of history.
Also, you have the actual graphs and statistics. I mean, it does make sense. If you increase the price of something, fewer people are going to be able to afford it. You're cutting off the supply of availability. So you see this in Europe as well. Higher the minimum wage, higher the unemployment for not only the average person, but especially the youth who have no skills, no experience. Um, do me a favor, go to the next one. I think this is just a continuation. In the United States, they asked chief financial officers, if the price of employing people increases, will you decrease the number of people you hire? Of course you would. Obviously, you see the same thing according to even the Bureau of Labor Statistics with black teen unemployment as well as teen unemployment. America. See, it's okay to pay thousands of dollars every year to go to university, but to get on the job experience for less than what the state tells you to, well, that's obviously evil. Here is Jason Brennan, professor of business and ethics at Georgetown University. Pat, walk us through the next three slides with Jason Brennan.
So this was basically what I was saying at the beginning or earlier on in this episode. These are two reasons why government regulation helps large corporations and hurts small businesses. The first reason is that the power to regulate the economy is the same thing as the power to distribute favors. And as I explained before, when you can buy a politician that will do favors to you, they will regulate an industry in ways that your company can certainly survive and then engulf the market share left over by the small businesses that can't jump through the regulatory hoops. So our second slide here is basically what I just said. Regulations hurt small businesses more than big businesses are hurt.
So a smaller business, 20 or less employees, pays about $10,500 per regulation, whereas big corporations, 500 employees or more, pay about $7,700. So the more regulations, the more they can push out smaller competitors. This is, by the way, according to a 2010 study from the U.S. Small Business Administration Office of Advocacy, SBA.gov. So title of this is the impact of regulatory costs on small firms. And look, of course, it's I can't think economies of scale, I think is the official term. Whereas if you said I want one printing of a book, Harry Potter, the seventh book. Well, if you're going to sell it to one person, it's going to be really expensive to make one copy. But once you make that one copy, everything else, now that the hard work is done, every copy after that is going to be much smaller. Same with employing people. Once you employ a lot of people, then it becomes much less costly per additional unit, per additional employee than it is if you have a smaller business. So again, this is another example of regulations hurting people who can't comply. This is a long history going back to 2010. You have Nelson Aldrich, the Republican whip of the Senate. You have Henry P. Davidson, J.P. Morgan company senior partner, Charles Norton, first president of the National Bank, Platt Andrew, the Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, Frank Vanderlip, President of National City Bank, Benjamin Strong, head of J.P. Morgan Bank Trust, and Paul Warburg, partner at Kuhn, Loeb and Company. These gentlemen got together at J.P. Morgan's house on Jekyll Island to write what we know as the Great Regulation, there to keep us safe and stop panics from ever occurring again, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. This probably has to be the biggest example of regulatory capture, where big people in the industry get together so they can make sure that other people can't compete. Just go back to the previous one right there. You can actually see an example of right there. We have Doug McMullen and H. Lee Scott, the last two CEOs of Walmart, calling to raise the minimum wage. It's just so self-serving. Jeff Bezos, look, they decided to raise the Amazon minimum wage. Nothing wrong with that at all. But now they're calling for it to be law, so all their competitors that have more difficulty complying. It's just so boringly predictable that, people with a lot of resources call to increase the amount of resources necessary to compete with them. It's such a joke. This is my general economic case against the minimum wage or any amount of regulations. When you increase the cost of something, fewer people will consume it. Increase the price of employment, fewer people will be employed. The higher the price, that means higher quality people will be purchased, and which comes at the exclusion of lower quality people, people with smaller skill sets and less experience. Certainly hurting small businesses helps big businesses who can afford to comply, which is fewer places for us to shop at as consumers, fewer job opportunities for us to be employed at, fewer production of goods and services, which leads to higher prices and less competition, which puts more people on welfare, which increases the amount of immediate or long-term taxation, which makes it so there are fewer people who have skills to compete in the marketplace, which causes income inequality, which leads for the idiot masses to call for bigger government to solve the problem that they caused in the first place. I think that's all I really have on this topic.
You can really see this at work in front of you. I mean, I just had a friend over, actually Mike Tilden, who used to do the Battle for Liberty podcast, and he was in town on business, and so we were able to get some dinner together. But we went to our local haunt, which is the supper club that's around me, and that supper club went out of business just a couple weeks ago. And there have been other restaurants that we'd like to frequent and other businesses that have gone out of business. And it's just really sad. It's really sad. All those people unemployed. And I remember when this first was happening, him going for the first lockdown protest at the Capitol and actually refusing to buy some products and from distributors who supported the lockdowns, like certain beer companies like New Glarus. I'm looking at you, New Glarus, Spotted Cow. I don't know if you know about that, Keith.
I'm actually not familiar with that case.
It's a beer company it's only allowed to be sold in Wisconsin. So talk about protectionism.
Yeah, certainly wish I could get my hands on some. I think Four Peaks is the Arizona one. I'm not sure if there's a free exchange of it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, Four Peaks hop. Not that's the if me being here doesn't bring you out here, the Four Peaks brand
Oh well,
certainly should.
it's going to bring me out there sometime. We'll have to plan in advance. I'll sneak some Spotted Cow with me. However, I remember that there was a bar in Minnesota that actually got, I don't know, they had huge fines because they were secretly selling New Glarus for cash under the table, and they got in big trouble. So anyways, well, I won't belabor the point, but the show notes for this one are at libertyweekly.net/137. Actually, Keith, is there anything, where can people find your work?
Check out my library BitChute channels. I'm also on YouTube, but don't waste your time there. I'm at Keith Knight. Don't tread on anyone on YouTube, mine's BitChute, and library.
Okay, and I recently was inspired by, of course, James Corbett. They had the Great Leaving YouTube party, and he I don't know if you saw this, Keith, but he hosted a bunch of people who have been deleted. So that really inspired me to try to move away from YouTube and other platforms. So I'm also on BitChute, Minds, Library, DTube, and Hive, which is like the old Steemit. So we'll put links in the show notes page there for you to find us there. But anyways, thanks again for joining me, Keith, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, brother.